Hi, it's Kiffin Lobates here, and in today's video I want to talk a bit about airdrops and also the OpenDAO and SOS token because it ties in with airdrops. And this OpenDAO is running an airdrop that I think affords me a great opportunity to talk about what airdrops actually are and some of the risks and rewards that are associated with them. So an airdrop is when an organization or a group of people basically give away a whole bunch of tokens to random people, usually in order to build up some hype and excitement about their project, thereby hopefully increasing the value of the token and making a good profit for themselves. Sometimes there are airdrops that are purely altruistic, but philosophers of altruism will tell you that we haven't really even got to the bottom of whether such a thing as altruism exists. And so in the crypto world, it is worth keeping an eye on the ball, because most people are in crypto in order to make a profit, not in order to better the world. It certainly has given scammers a lot of great opportunities to fleece people for large sums of money. But anyway, back to the OpenDAO and the SOS token. So the idea behind this token is that it's going to build a community of Web3 enthusiasts who can move the NFT world forward, and they've tied it in with the activity of people on the OpenSea NFT platform, which I have talked about before. And what the website does when you go and visit it is it asks you to link your wallet, and this kind of activity, generally speaking, as far as I'm aware, is safe, because all you're doing is you're sharing an Ethereum address with the Web3 website. The website then goes off and retrieves your activity on OpenSea and determines how many NFTs you've bought and sold and how much Ether or DAI or USDT you have used in the process, and calculates how many tokens the contract will give you if you interact with it. So the OpenDAO project has released an ERC20 token called SOS, and I had a look through the contract, because you should never just go and accept airdrops. There's an opportunity there for scammers to get you to undertake actions with your wallet that could end up with you losing all your assets. So never just accept a token willy-nilly, or rather I'll have to talk a bit about accepting. Never interact with a contract willy-nilly without doing some research first. Now, obviously this is going to be difficult for most people. Going and digging through the Solidity code in order to see whether there's something malicious there or not requires a fair amount of know-how that there isn't much of out there. I know that it's taken me years to get to the point where I can feel reasonably confident when I look at a contract that nothing overtly malicious is going on. However, there are all sorts of subtle tricks that people can pull which will even con me. So I tend to take my time before interacting with a new contract. Other people seem to very enthusiastically just launch into it and click, yes, I'll sign that, yes, I'll submit that. So back to the SOS token. The contract looks like a standard ERC20 contract from OpenZeppelin that has had a few alterations. And I downloaded all the contract information from Etherscan, because they have very kindly verified the code there, so you can see the exact source code without having to reverse compile it. So that removes one red flag. If the contract deployers haven't submitted their contract for verification to Etherscan, then don't interact with it, because honestly, either they're incompetent or they're scammers. Now, looking through the code that they deployed, there are some modifications to the standard ERC20 token contract in it. And the two that jump out immediately is that the minting function has been changed, and secondly, the signing function has been changed. So maybe it's worth talking a bit about signing. With your MetaMask wallet or other Ethereum wallet, you can sign messages that are presented to you. These are used in a cryptographic challenge response manner, whereby you prove that you are indeed the owner of the public address on the Ethereum chain by signing something with your private key, and people can then check, or code can then check, that that message was indeed signed by the private key corresponding to the public key that is made available out there to everybody. And this is what you do when you submit a transaction. You're using your private key to sign a transaction saying, I want to transfer some tokens or an NFT, and the blockchain accepts that because it can check the signature and realize that indeed the public address that owns that NFT or those tokens has had a transaction signed by the private key, and that authorizes it. This opens us up to attacks, though, because if someone presents you with a message and they tell you in the website that the message is just to prove you are who you are, but the actual message they give you to sign is a transaction that transfers all the stuff out of your wallet or gives permission to other contracts to do so, well, then you're effectively signing your own, in quotes, death warrant. You're being tricked into signing a blank check, as it were. So if someone makes changes to the signing code of a standard template OpenZeppelin contract, it's worth digging into it. And I had a look and it kind of seems to make sense. It's a minor modification when you go and look at the standard that describes this particular kind of signing, which is about presenting people with a clear message rather than a bunch of hex code, so that you can actually kind of understand what it is that they're trying to get you to sign. It is a reasonable, it looks like a reasonable fair implementation of, I think it's EIP 719. So I don't really understand why they made a slight change. It may even be a change that makes it slightly more secure than the standard OpenZeppelin one, but I've only spent about an hour this morning looking into the contract. A full audit would take weeks, and they're not paying me to audit their code, so I'm not going to go to those kind of efforts. Anyway, I think I've got a bit technical here. I'll go back to the token drop thing. So it's become really popular in the last couple of days, and the price has shot up, and as a result people are going to start getting excited about claiming their free tokens and possibly selling them on some of the exchanges that have started listing it. So that's another positive sign. Some exchanges have listed it. I would hope, therefore, that some effort has been put into looking at the source code by those exchanges, but of course there's no guarantee, because ultimately the motivation of exchanges is to make lots of have lots of members who make lots of trades so that they get commission. That's the way that they make their money. And a secondary consideration for exchanges is that they want to keep their reputation. It wouldn't be good for them if they promoted a particular coin that later turned out to be a scam and fleeced all their user base. That would end up with that user base fleeing from them in droves. So there is some motivation for them to be careful, but it's the fear-greed equation again. And when you look at the exchanges, you'll see it's the less popular or less well-known ones that are listing it first, and they have less reputation to lose, and therefore they tend to fall more on the greed side of the spectrum than the fear side. You fear when you have things that you can lose. So anyway, so that's not a red flag, not a green flag either. Then another thing to consider is that you've got until 22 June to claim these tokens. Now, if your fear is that the price has risen dramatically but it's going to collapse soon, and you're potentially sitting on a few hundreds or thousands of dollars, if you claim it now and get it onto an exchange and sell it, well, then you're starting to fall victim to the fear of missing out risk. My take is that I'm not going to be claiming the handful of tokens that I am entitled to at this moment. I'm going to sit and wait it out, because there are going to be lots of other people signing up, and if there's a scam and the rug is pulled, then presumably that will happen in the next couple of months. Which does lead me on to another thing, namely that the project is anonymous. We don't know who the people behind the project are. This can or cannot be a red flag. A lot of projects are run anonymously and are perfectly okay. The people running them just want to stay anonymous because they want to have their privacy respected, or because they want to avoid tax implications. There are other people who run projects where they are anonymous because they are intending to pull a scam and they don't want to be tracked down by the authorities and arrested. So there are some sort of valid reasons for remaining anonymous, and there are lots of reasons not to. So keep that in mind as well if you decide to go ahead and interact with this contract. Anyway, I think that kind of covers some of the issues that surround airdrops. Just to recap, if tokens randomly arrive in your address, don't go and interact with the contract without doing some thorough research first, or you may fall victim to a scam where you lose all your digital assets in that address. Don't rush in and hurry. Remember that people who cave into FOMO, or fear of missing out, are the easiest to scam. The third one is that in principle the OpenDAO SOS token looks okay to me. There's nothing obvious there that I've been able to find in about an hour of digging through the code that looks suspicious. However, there are also all sorts of subtle things that are easy to miss. So it's not a blatant scam. It's now either a fair and true project, or if it is a scam, it's quite a subtle one, and only time will reveal that second case when more and more eyeballs start looking at the contract. So my recommendation is keep an eye on it, but take your time. Anyway, I hope you found this video interesting, that it's covered a few topics that I haven't talked about before, and I'll see you all in the next video soon. Bye for now.